Chris Barnes is somebody that I'm sure the majority of you watching this are aware of. He's also a very controversial figure in metal, as to some, he's a legend who deserves to be praised for his work, while to others, he's the guy who crashes out on Twitter. Personally, I can appreciate what he's done for the band Cannibal Corpse and to metal as a whole for his contribution on those 4 all-time classic albums. And while Chris's career post-Cannibal Corpse seemed promising at first, it wouldn't take long to start spiraling downward into a joke within the genre he helped popularize. 6 Feet Under was originally a side project formed by Barnes and Obituary guitarist Alan West in 1993. It's also why Chris was given the boot from Cannibal Corpse after he chose to go on tour instead of finishing the vocals for their next album. Chris would also draw the logo for this band as well, and much like the bands themselves, the Cannibal Corpse one is a lot better. Stylistically, they're a little different from Cannibal Corpse, going for more of a rock-influenced death and roll sound compared to the more brutal sound that Cannibal Corpse has. The band has a bit of a reputation for their music, but not really for the reasons you want to be known for. They're a punchline. The quality of 6 Feet Under's discography would only get worse as time went on, with one exception, but I see that as more of a fluke than anything. While the albums instrumentally varied in quality, partially due to a few lineup changes throughout the years, the main thing that consistently reduced in quality was Chris's voice. Due to Chris's lack of proper vocal technique, aging, as well as being a chronic user of the chronic for many years, his vocal cords melted away to the point that he sounds like a sick dog that's begging to be put down. He would also get way more reliant on those stupid fucking which also got worse over time, and it would all lead to 6 Feet Under birthing this Harlequin hellspawn onto Earth. Chris Barnes has recently quit smoking actually, which has had some positive effects on his voice on their most recent album, but only time will tell if his voice will continue to improve or not. The lyrics still suck though. While I'm not much of a fan of 6 Feet Under's work, I do admittedly think their first 2 albums are genuinely good listens. And since my last video on Chris did so well, as well as the fact that my Spider-Man video is taking forever, I figured I'd talk about the 6 Feet Under albums I get enjoyment from that isn't out of laughter, starting with Haunted, released on September 26, 1995. It would not be long after the release of this album that Chris would be kicked from Cannibal Corpse, resulting in 6 Feet Under becoming his main project. Along with Alan West on guitars, there's also Terry Butler on bass, and Greg Gall on drums. The album was produced by Brian Slagle and Scott Burns, both who previously produced albums for both Cannibal Corpse and Obituary. The production, coupled with West's guitars, both with his riffs and how the guitars are mixed, give the whole album an Obituary-esque sound to it, sometimes sounding a little too much like Obituary. It kinda just makes me wish I was listening to them instead. Chris Barnes' voice wasn't obliterated yet, so he actually sounds awesome here. I actually prefer how he sounds on this album when compared to The Bleeding. His stupid high vocals are toned down here, and he sounds more guttural overall, but not too much to the point where the lyrics are inaudible, though speaking of lyrics, I feel they've been dumbed down since the last album. They're a lot simpler, and the content isn't as gory or disgusting as his work with Cannibal Corpse. Hell, I don't even recall there being any swear words on this album. There's also a lot of repetitive phrases that you'll pick up on going through the album, like Chris overusing words like flesh or rotten or screaming the word man, I'm dead. I understand it's death metal, so the lyrics aren't that important, but hearing these phrases constantly almost makes it out like Chris couldn't come up with any more ideas. Majority of the songs, with a few exceptions, all kind of chug at the same pace, making them sound very similar to each other. The Enemy Inside is a solid opening track, being about someone with this evil other personality inside of him that grows stronger and takes over him, like he's the fucking Green Goblin or something. It's got this fast-paced energy throughout the song that makes it fun to headbang to, and it's one of my favorite vocal performances from Chris ever. Silent Violence is a decent follow-up, though not as interesting as the previous track, being about killing somebody and leaving them somewhere where they won't be found. The chorus, while good, I feel is used too often, and the main riff during the verses feels really plain to listen to. Chris at least brings his A game with lyrics like, "There is much blood." Lycanthropy is a song about Chris Barnes being a furry or some shit. The song starts off really cool with the build-up leading into the main riff, but it doesn't really do much exciting outside of that. I love the groove Human Target brings to the album, and the chorus, while brain dead, is at least fun to listen to. Suffering and Ecstasy brings some much needed energy back to the album. Greg Gall's drumming is actually given time to shine here. Alan West also does a sick guitar solo here, which helps the song stand out a bit. There were also solos on the song Still Alive, but that song wasn't nearly as interesting of a listen overall. The title track, Haunted, is a decent closer for the album. The solo, with Chris screaming the song name, is one of my favorite moments on the whole album. Overall, while this album has a lot of awesome moments to it, the songs often feel a bit too basic and repetitive, with Chris taking a step forward in how his voice sounds, with like 3 steps back in terms of creative lyrics. Even the album art's creatively bankrupt, they just took it from a movie poster, but I'm sure these issues would be addressed by the time their second album rolled out, right? Warpath would release on September 9th, 1997, and would be the last album to feature the band's original lineup, mainly due to Alan West having better things to do. The album cover actually features artwork done by Chris himself, and it's probably the best thing Chris has contributed to the album, especially since his voice here sounds a little worse than it did on Haunted. He sounds like he's trying to be more aggressive and use more range with his voice. Songs like A Journey into Darkness and 420 incorporate clean vocals throughout them, which is nice. However, the overall quality of his voice has some grit to it caused by his smoking. It's not complete dog-ass yet, but you can definitely tell that this album marks the beginning of the end of his voice sounding any decent. There's also way more ease here, even more than on The Bleeding, I'm pretty sure. Lyrically, the album is about on par with Haunted, and by that I mean it's kinda crap and a bit repetitive. The album leans into the death and roll sound even more than on Haunted, which helps give the album a bit more of its own identity. Alan West's guitars still have great moments throughout the album, but overall I feel his riffs aren't as gripping here. Some songs even have really similar sounding main riffs. The opener, War Is Coming, has one of the better riffs on the whole album. Chris sounds awesome here. Even his high vocals aren't too grating here. His growls sound really full too. I also love Greg Gall's drum fills throughout the song. Definitely one of the best songs on the album. Non-Existence is probably my favorite song on the album. I love how Chris switches between vocal styles without it sounding like shit. The guitars sound beefy, and the solo is an amazing moment to listen to. Animal Instinct is the first song I would actually consider bad from this band. It's a faster-paced song, which is good considering how many songs on this album still have a mid-tempo, but this song feels way too repetitive, even for 6 Feet Under standards, with Chris bringing his laziest lyrics so far, along with the instrumental being boring overall. Burning Blood has a couple of moments that gave me a bit of a chuckle. For one, he throws in a quick E during a line, like it's some kind of autistic tick of his. The song also has a fake-out ending, and this song is not good enough for me to want to listen past the first ending. Death or Glory is a cover song originally done by the UK band Holocaust, because for some reason Chris has an obsession with singing other people's songs poorly. Hell, they've released 4 of these cover albums and they all put the ass in the name Graveyard Classics. This cover, however, isn't that bad. It's actually one of the better songs on the album, mainly because the band didn't write it, so there's a lot more substance here. Manipulation is an absolute banger, and it shows that simpler songs can work when done right. 6 Feet Under just don't do it right a lot of the time. 420 is exactly what you think it's about. Adolf's Birthday, of course. The song takes more of a stoner metal influence, making it stand out from the death and roll style from the rest of the album. Another thing making it stand out is Chris's use of clean vocals on the verses, which don't sound terrible surprisingly. They also apparently recorded the song on April 20th at 4:20 in the afternoon, which is admittedly kind of funny. Overall, this album does some things better than Haunted, but it also does quite a lot worse, making both of these albums pretty equal in terms of quality to me. Some people argue the band's third album, Maximum Violence, is also alright, which, No. 6 Feet Under would unfortunately continue releasing music throughout the years, as well as going through many more lineup changes. Hell, former Cannibal Corpse guitarist Jack Owen is now a current member of 6 Feet Under, funnily enough. While I may not be a fan of much of their discography, 6 Feet Under's first 2 albums are at least worth a listen if you're a fan of the Barnes era of Cannibal Corpse. What are your thoughts on these albums? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I'm trying to hit 4,000 subs by the end of the year, so it'd be very much appreciated. If you want to support further, consider becoming a member. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.
EEEEEE